Hey, welcome everyone. Tonight is Monday, and we are going to go Italian. We've done that 3 or 4 nights already in this week and a half we've been doing this. Today is chicken piccata, and piccata is basically lemon juice, butters, and capers. So capers give that saltiness, the lemon juice gives the acid, and butter gives the fat. So it's automatically balanced, and that's what's great about so much of Italian cooking in general is everything has balance. Really smart about how they do things. So we are going to do our own take. There's so many different versions of piccata out there. Tonight with our chicken, we are going to lightly dredge it in flour. We're going to add a little bit of white wine because we can. We'll put some garlic in there and we'll see what happens. So here we go. Super easy dish to make. This is one that you could come home and in 20 minutes, 25 minutes, throw it together. So right here I have some flour that's been lightly seasoned with salt and pepper. And I'm not dredging it like I would deep fry something where I'm coating it. I'm really just trying to get a light dusting on it. So this is going to be way too much flour for the little bit of chicken that we're going to use. Because I am going to take 3 breasts and we're going to turn it into 6 scallopini or cutlets. So first thing I'm going to do when we get these chicken breasts from the store, you'll find here's the breast. This is actually the tenderloin that's still attached, and sometimes there'll be a line that's kind of tough, and when you're doing something like this, you want every bite to be really smooth. So once we get through it, we may see and cut some out. This is a little bit of the rib meat here. We're going to remove that. So first things first, I'm going to flip it on its back. I'm going to look for any little pieces here and here. Let me flip this around so you can see. So that's something that I don't desire. Same with the rib meat. So I'm going to cut this off. Basically anything that's white and looks like it would be tough to go through. The other thing that happens, this little tail kind of folds in sometimes. So I'm okay with all of that, and I'm going to now just kind of finish the job that they did when they deboned and took the skin off the chicken. Sometimes these little pieces are a lot more than this. They did a good job on these. So I don't really have a ton that I'm going to take off. I might come through and just make sure there's nothing little here. So that's where we are. Step 2, I'm going to cut through the chicken, and if I was truly butterflying it and I wanted it to stay open and butterflied, I would go from the tenderloin side every time, because I would want to leave this nice flat edge opened up and basically make a heart shape. Because I'm going to be cutting all the way through and I want an even cut, I'm going to start on this heart shape, the long side, and I'm going to try and kind of eyeball where I'm getting at that 50-50 mark of this. So I'm going to have a larger portion that's the bottom and a smaller portion that's the top, just because of the natural shape of the breast. So I'm going to come through here. Keeping light pressure down on my hand, and I can actually kind of start to pull apart and kind of cut along. So this tells me I'm in pretty good shape. Here's that cut I was looking for, where I'm about 50-50 top and bottom. So I may not start all the way here at the edge because of the shape of the breast. I would then be cutting this bottom part too thin. So there, I'm happy with where we are. I'm going to start here, and I'm going to cut all the way through at this point. Being careful not to cut my hand. So here's where we are. I'm down to here, and at this point I can pull back. So I have 2 scallopini at this point. They are maybe just a little bit thicker than what a normal cutlet would be, so I may end up pounding this a little bit. I try to avoid pounding unless it's really uneven, because I still like a juicy piece of chicken if I can. So I'm going to set those off to the side. We work on piece number 2. I'm just going to do 3 breasts tonight. It's going to turn into 6 pieces. they did a really nice job. This is just, what is this? What do we get here tonight? Signature Farms boneless, skinless chicken breast. So it's nothing super fancy. And this was from the local Albertsons or Safeway, Vons, any of those type stores. I think it's like Wegmans or Osco on the East Coast. So here's where I'm looking for these little pieces. I really don't love these being in here, so I'm gonna try and cut this out without cutting away too much of the good chicken meat that is there. I also have a vegetarian daughter, so we're going to do a chicken, it's called. It doesn't have an E in it. It's a vegetarian chicken-like dish. We're gonna do it in that same piccata style. I'm just going to do it a little differently for her. So remember, if you're normally butterflying, we'd want to go through here where you see the tenderloin. If we want to keep it as one whole, but because we're doing scallopini and cutlets, I'm going to go right through here to that 50% number. And try and get them relatively even. So that's going to be a little thick. I'm probably, because of that rip, I'm probably just going to open that up a little bit. And that'll kind of be one piece. And we're working now on number 3. I'm taking longer, obviously, because I'm explaining each step of the way. Otherwise, I would be long done with all of this. All right, and there's our 6 cutlets. We're gonna take a look and we may pound out just a little bit. So I am going to, let's see, we can do it one of 2 ways. I can actually use a meat tenderizer or a tool used to pound it, but since not everyone has that, why don't we go with kind of the old school method? I'm gonna wash this hand, I'll be right back. So what I'm going to do here is take a couple of pieces of plastic wrap, I'll lay them on the board. I mean, sometimes you'll buy those chicken breasts and you'll see them and it's like, what in the world was this? Because it's so big. And you'll have to pound it just because it's kind of that in between. There's no way to cut it into 3 pieces and it's just too big as 2. So I'll set this off to the side. So the pieces I want to pound, I'm not going to pound this one. This one's perfect. So I'm just going to lay that here in the flour. I like that one too. I like this one too. There was one. I like this one too. Here we go. Here's the one piece that we could pound just a little bit. So I want to remove any of these little pieces of connective tissue that might still be attached. Set that here. I'm going to set one piece of plastic underneath, one piece of plastic on top, and then you can take a wine bottle, and this is one that we had already opened. So all I'm going to do is take the wine bottle. Now what you have to look at is what kind of bottom it has. Some of them are flat, some of them are concave. And with the concave ones, you just really want to kind of go at an angle and not too hard, and just know that you're using just an edge, because if you really slam down on it here in the middle, all of the meat will go right up into this concave part. So all I'm doing is kind of going along. And that's all. I want to gently do this. If I sit and slam on it, I'm going to start ripping meat apart. And that wine bottle didn't touch any chicken. We're in good shape. And now I have just gently flattened it so that it is even. So Super happy with that, and this one is fine. So here we go. So I'm going to wash my hands one more time here. I have 2 pieces of chicken here in the dredge. And I'll move this pot to the back and we'll get going. It's kind of funny, my wife and I were talking earlier today about gloves and the use of gloves in the kitchen and kind of out and about. And the one thing that worries me always, you almost get a false sense of security when you're using gloves because you start touching one thing and then you're still wearing the gloves, so you go and touch something else, and then maybe you do this and you touch something else. Well, for me personally, hand washing, I'm going to wash my hands way more often than I'm going to change gloves. And so I'm a big fan of making sure that I'm still clean, keeping my hands clean, and just continuing to wash over and over again. All right, so I have 2 scallopini or cutlets here in this flour. I'm just lightly dusting it. I'm going to use my big tub of olive oil. Still, I don't think we've gone a night without using the olive oil in some way. So right now I have kind of a deeper pan than I might normally use, but I'm just trying to keep the splash from getting everywhere. Actually, just got this cool Dutch oven to bake bread in. That's coming. I have sourdough starter I started about a week ago. So that's here. I have on the back a pot of boiling water that we're going typically you'd want to do angel hair, but we don't have angel hair, so we're going to do spaghetti. So I'm putting a bit of olive oil down here in the pan. It's going to make a roux in a way. So we have our fat, the olive oil, which is like butter. We're going to have the lightly flour dusted chicken, and they're going to start to cook together and make a roux while we're cooking this chicken. So I have it maybe medium high right now. So I'll bring this up to you. So all we're doing is taking this piece, shaking off any excess flour, putting it back in, shaking off any excess flour. I don't need to necessarily season the chicken because I've seasoned the heck out of this flour. There's a bunch of salt in it. And then the sauce is going to be relatively salty. So there's no need to pre-season the chicken here because I am seasoning it here with this dusting of flour. If you didn't season your flour, I would highly recommend seasoning your chicken with some salt and pepper. So super light. If you're gluten-free, you can always use cornstarch here for this. So there's my chicken. It looks like our oil is hot. I'm happy with it. That's going in, and I'm going to do 3 at a time. I also have an oven at 225, so as I'm done cooking these, they're going to just sit in there on low while I make the sauce. And while I'm making that sauce, I will drop the spaghetti noodles in, and then we'll be about 10 minutes at that point. So here's our 3 cutlets going in the oil. You want to hear a sizzle. If you don't hear a sizzle when you drop it in the pan is not hot enough. And what's going to happen is that oil is going to soak in instead of creating a little bit of a sear. So I don't want to completely drown it in oil. What I'm looking for is just that little bubbling on the outside. I don't have a ton of oil over here though. I don't know if you can see right there. So I don't have a ton of oil here, so I may add just a little bit. And I'm probably going to turn the heat up a little bit because I'm adding cold oil to a pan. So I'm going to move up to high. I'm going to drop just another splash of oil in. And then I'm going to swirl the pan a little bit. I'm trying not to disturb the chicken too much because I'm trying to create a good browning on it. And what I don't want to do is continue to flip it over and over again. I want to cook it on one side, flip it over, cook it on the other side, and then we'll stick it on a sheet pan and it'll go in the oven. So we'll have 6 cutlets. We'll have this great sauce that we're going to do. I'm going to do 2 sauces. So I'm going to do one in this pan, and then because my other daughter is a vegetarian and we're doing that vegetarian chicken-like dish, whatever it is, I'll do a pan sauce in her pan as well so that it's still completely vegetarian. Not vegan because we are using butter, but it'll be something that she finds acceptable. And then the spaghetti will keep vegetarian. We won't add any chicken drippings or anything like that in there. So here we go. So it's going probably another minute. At that point, I'm going to use tongs to turn it. This water, unfortunately, the way these work, this is my best burner here. This is my second best burner as far as the amount of heat that comes off of it, third and fourth. And so the boil on this isn't quite to my satisfaction, so I'm not going to go drop the spaghetti in until I can move this up here. Once I do that, then I'll drop that spaghetti. So here we go. We are, you can actually see that sizzling, and you can see the white at the edges, which is a great sign. Remember, that oven's going to be at 225, so it doesn't need to be 100% cooked at the time that we do this. We want to turn it. Let's see if I can do this. I'm going to try and turn and have you here at home in my hand at the same time. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to grab it one time, flip it over, and that is awesome. So that's a great brown that we got on it. And we're not looking for it like it breaded, coated in flour. We're looking for it dusted. Just enough to get a little bit of crispness, and it'll actually help thicken the sauce as well. So I'm happy with this. I do see that this is a little more brown than this, so I'm actually going to turn the whole pan, because that tells me my heat is hotter back here and cooler here. So to evenly cook, that's what we're going to do. So that's going to sit in there for another about 2 minutes. And while that's happening, I'm going to see if we have anyone making any comments. Let's see. All right, so Lynn is happy. It's her favorite. Yay. I did see you in the parking lot at school earlier, Lynn. Sarah, I highly doubt you can be here by the time I'm plating this. This is going to be super quick. And Mrs. Thompson out in New York is watching, and so I'm sure she can make this as well. And I may do some things that she would say, oh no, you can't do that. You got to do it differently. So everyone has their own style. I've seen people put Parmesan cheese into the dredge, the flour, which I think is crazy because it's not chicken Parmesan, it's chicken piccata. But everyone has their own style, and that's fine. And the amount of garlic you put in, the amount of white wine you put in, you don't have to put either one in. It's just to really make it truly piccata. Lemon, butter, capers. That's it. Everything else is just gravy. I'm liking the sound I'm getting. You actually can see the brown in the pan. That's nice. So we're getting a pretty good sear. I don't want the pan to burn, so at this point I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. I do have a sheet pan right here that I'm going to put the chicken on, and it's going to go in the oven. And we're right there. This is perfect. Absolutely perfect. So I always like to put the last side cooked face up. That's going to be the crispiest crust, and that will stay crispy in the oven. The underside will get just a little bit soggy because it just naturally will happen that way. That goes in the oven, and we move on to our next three. I'm going to turn this heat all the way down so I don't burn the pieces that are here in the pan. If you think that they do get too burned, here, we'll do it. We'll do it for you right now. If you think they get too burned, all you have to do is then crank the heat all the way to high, take a little bit of white wine, you drop it in, you're deglazing the pan, get a wooden spoon that has a flat edge, and scrape up those bits, and they'll come right up. At this point, I'm going to turn the heat down. So I have all of the bits that are scraped up now, and then we don't see all those brown bits. And I will move these into a small bowl or coffee cup because I'll use them later. And if your sauce reduces too much and you can't get everything out, you can always add a little bit more wine because that wine will cook down. So we've already started a pan sauce, and then we're going to have a little less browning on the second batch, so it'll be more consistent. Here's our drippings. And look at that, all that wine I went in, this is all that's left, just very little. So I'm gonna set this off to the side. This will go back into the pan. Now we're on step 2. I still have it at low to medium low because I want the pan to heat back up a little bit. I'm going to dredge the chicken in the flour. Remember, if you don't season your flour, you aren't going to be able to get that salt content into the chicken because you're kind of creating a little layer. So if you don't season the flour, make sure you season the chicken. You know what, I forgot. Because we have deglazed this pan, we're going to need to start over with some olive oil. Olive oil in, the pan is warm. We're going to turn the heat up to medium high. And the chicken's about to go in here in 10 seconds. Here goes piece 1. Remember, you want to hear a sizzle when you drop it in the pan. If you don't, your pan's not hot enough. Shake off any of the excess flour because we're not trying to create a breading. And then because I know where the hot spot is in my pan, I'm going to take the largest piece that I have and put that right in that hot spot. See, I told you we'd have a whole ton of extra dredge, and that's all right. I just did it for example. That dredge is going to go into the trash. I was using raw chicken with it, so it's gone. I'm not going to be handling any chicken anymore, so I'm going to be washing my hands. So hand wash, hands are washed. I'm going to remove the cutting board here. That's going into the trash. Plastic. So this is a great time while you're waiting for this chicken to kind of set up your next stage here, which is going to be all of the parts that are going to go into this sauce. So I have some white wine. I actually have 2 kinds of white wine, and I do this as I taste. So I have a pretty nice Chardonnay that we have just a little bit left. It's going to be a little more buttery and oaky, and then I have this Euphoria, which is a lot more floral notes, a little bit more sweetness. So depending on what flavor profile I want, I'm going to throw it in there. I have butter, I have garlic cloves, I have lemons, I have capers, parsley, and then always salt and pepper on my station. So this is going maybe another 30 seconds. The other thing you can do is enjoy it. We live in San Diego, so it's really nice to support these guys. They're about 5 minutes from our house. Just really well-made beer. I'll just call that my cooking beer. I'm probably gonna have some wine with dinner tonight though. So just like before, I'm going to make sure I'm getting oil coating all the pieces of this chicken. I'm gonna bring you over to the pan so you can see where we are. So this one you can see is already almost cooked all the way through. So that means I'm ready to turn it. What I don't want is overcooked chicken. And based on what I'm seeing here, I'm going to add just a little bit more oil. Not a lot, just enough to get the bottom of the pan coated again. And I'll show you what happened here. So I have, this was the last piece that I put in, and it's not quite as brown as this piece here. You can see a little bit of difference. So I'm going to keep this bigger piece here in the hot spot. And we'll get that browning on the other side. This is the most crucial side to get the browning on because this will be our face-up side. So Mike just asked if I'm building a fond for a sauce. So if you're talking about deglazing the pan and saving it, all I'm trying to do is save the brown bits and all the good chicken flavor in there with some reduced white wine. Because it'll help just build some complexity in the sauce. The other thing I'm going to do once I put the white wine in there is make sure that it reduces. I want any wine that I add in or any liquid I add in to reduce by at least half. So I want to allow myself the time for that liquid to reduce. Just going to help concentrate the flavor. If I ever think something's overly concentrated, I can always add water in. But what I don't want to have is something that's bland or blah. So anytime you have something you're like, oh man, it's not nearly as flavorful as I'd like, just actually let it sit and reduce and all those flavors will concentrate. You can always add some salt in too. So I think we're about done here. Remember, I have in the oven at 225 these other cutlets, scallopini. This little piece I know is done, just because it's so small. So that's here. These are gonna sit in that oven to stay warm. Piece number 2 is done. And I can just tell by how brown it is here on top. This is the piece that I just pulled out. Kind of that perfect brownness. And then piece number 3, I'm gonna let sit in there for just another minute. This is the one that I actually might break my own rule and flip it over just to see. And I'm gonna leave it there for just about 20 seconds or so to let it pick up any of these brown bits. And I might even move it around in the pan here. So that's in here. I'm about 10 seconds from pulling it out. I'm going to turn the heat down to avoid any of the oil splattering. And I don't want to burn the leftover brown bits while I'm getting everything else done. At this point, I'm going to move this pan. I'm going to swap places here, and I'll build my sauce on the back burner, and I'm going to get the spaghetti part going. All right, so here is the spaghetti pot. We have water that's boiling. Back burner goes the sauce. I do have a little non-stick pan that I'm going to do my daughter's chicken in instead of the chicken. So that's going to go on to low. Now we'll work with the sauce. So let's put my chicken knife away. We're down to our veggie cutting board. So what I have here near the veggie cutting board is, move the wine out of the way. Obviously I have my beer because you never know when you might get thirsty. I'm going to have my favorite vegetable cutting knife. This is my chef's knife. This is a Miyabi. It's a really great Japanese chef's knife. And what I like about it is it stays super sharp for a longer amount of time. So let's start things off with some butter. You know what? Let's deglaze the pan. Use the Chardonnay. I'm going to turn this heat up to high. I want to hear it start to sizzle again. And then I'll actually bring the pan over to you so you can see. Let me bring this up just a little bit more. Let's see if I can get that perfect. All right, so you can see both the pan, which is right there, is the good pan. Let's move this blue one out of the way. I'm gonna put my pasta in because we want to eat sometime tonight. It's already 6:30. So this is, if you saw the other night, I got this huge 5-pound bag. 10 pound. Holy cow. That's a lot of spaghetti. I'm not a fan of breaking the spaghetti. They made it this length for a reason. So it's gonna go drop into the water. I use the flour method so that it tends not to stick together as easily. Slotted spoon will stir the water. The water's pretty heavily salted. We're going to try and get this back up to boiling. Salted water does have a higher boiling point though, so be aware if you're saying, oh man, this is taking forever to boil. That's good. It means you salted your water enough. Okay, so this back pan is nice and hot. I'm going to show you the little bit of brown bits in here. We're going to put our white wine in and deglaze the pan. I'm going to use my straight edge wooden spoon. We're going to put it back on the heat. I want these brown bits to be part of the sauce. This liquid is already evaporated, so I'm going to add just a little bit more of the other wine. So I'd say all in all, you're probably looking at maybe a quarter cup to half a cup of wine that's going to go into this. And it's reducing almost to a glaze. All right, now I'm happy with the brown bits being up, so I'm going to turn this down to medium. I'm going to bring back in my other bits, which has just a little bit of olive oil, some of the other reduced white wine. So I already have a fat component in there. I'm going to add in more. So we're going to add butter in. Let's not be shy with the butter. I'd call this maybe a half a stick. That's going to go in and melt. I'm checking the pasta and make sure it's not sticking while this is going on. Happy with where that is. We're probably 6 minutes, I'm guessing, on the pasta. Dougie Fresh, if you know what that is. I know Pat Martinez does. All right, so we have our garlic. Super easy on the garlic. All we have to do is take the side of our knife, the garlic's underneath, smash it down. That's it, we're trying to do that. I'm gonna do a really coarse chop. I actually want bits of garlic in here, nothing super fine diced. So garlic cloves, let's bring this in front of you. Garlic cloves down, knife down. Using the palm, I'm hitting up here so that not to cut myself. And we're smashing that garlic, and then we're gonna do a super rough chop. So, I mean, you can mince, you can chop, you can put in whole garlic cloves. You don't have to put garlic in at all. This is definitely an optional part of this piccata. And yeah, I think that's good. So our butter is melted. Here's what our sauce is looking like right now. Let's see if I can get, I'm gonna bring it down to you. So it's very dark, which is much more what I'm looking for because I want that really cooked component. We're gonna bring in freshness at the end by adding that lemon. Garlic's gonna go right here in the pan. I don't want the garlic to burn. So all I'm trying to do is really slowly cook this garlic, almost like braising. I will chop the capers at this point. I'm gonna do one more stir here. Oh, and you know what I almost forgot is my daughter's chicken. So this is the stuff that she likes, and it is soy protein, wheat gluten, some other flours, yeast extract, potato starch. She likes it and has protein, and so I'm happy to do it for her. So a little bit of oil in the pan for her. For those of you that are vegan, they're really popular with her. I have tried it. It eerily does taste like chicken. I don't know how they do this. They give it to you in strips. I mean, it looks like chicken strips. It's really kind of crazy. So I'm gonna wait for this oil to heat up just a little bit. The garlic is cooking back here. Well, that's all going. I'm going to move on to the capers. The lemon juice, I'm gonna wait till the very end. Kept that at a low heat for the sauce. Yes, so Mike Taylor just asked if I kept everything at a low heat, and that is because the garlic in here burns very easily. And so what I don't want to do is burn this garlic. I just want it to slowly cook. So I've already deglazed it at the high heat. At this point, it's staying super low, just so I can kind of meld those flavors together. Let's see, Mike tried the brand for burgers and ground beef. Yeah, and she has the ground beef stuff too. We have it in the house, and she's now said that she doesn't like it. So if you want to come over after this is all over and grab some, you're more than welcome to. All right, so capers, putting down here. I'm not a huge caper fan, and so I'm going to put them in there and chop them, but I'm not going to overdo it with capers. So here are my chopped capers. Let's do one more. So nice and briny, good salt level to them. So I won't need to add a ton more salt. A couple more will go in here. I'm gonna give it a stir. It smells pretty incredible. So that butter is slowly melted. I may want to thicken it just a little bit. I might add some flour in to act like a roux to make the sauce a little bit thicker. I feel confident that this oil is heated, so now I'm going to put my chicken strips in. I don't know what a serving would be. Let's see. About a third of a pack, so I don't know, put maybe 6 or 7 of these guys in here. Yeah, well, that's right. So she'll get 7 of them. I think we're going to get pretty close here on our pasta. Yep, it sure does look like it. So now I'm going to try a piece. And we want a little bit of chew still, keep it al dente. It will continue to cook. We're definitely there. So pasta's coming off. I'm going to turn that heat down to low, and I'm going to move my saucepan up front. I am going to thicken this sauce, and we are going to take some of the flour that I have right here, so you can go along for the ride. So we'll grab just a little bit of flour, and we're going to bring it over to our sauce. We're going to add it in, and that'll help thicken it. So here's the sauce. I'm going to stir it around, and you can see the sauce start to thicken immediately just by stirring it. I personally love the brown bits in the sauce. It's just an enhancement of the flavors. If you're not a big fan of them, you don't have to use them. You can see the big pieces of garlic in here. The capers are in there. It's going to cook for just maybe 2 minutes, and then I'll add the lemon juice at the very end. So just about everything's done. The pasta's done. My other daughter's chicken is going right now. We're going to do a little sauce for her. So I'm going to take a couple of garlic cloves, and kind of do the same thing and chop them. I think I'm going to avoid her having the capers because I don't know. She's kind of picky. Leave them out for her. Because I've used this knife on butter, on the garlic, I'm going to do butter separately. Take about that much butter, And yes, I will use a little bit of white wine for her sauce. So as this has been sitting, we're just about perfect on that pasta. Separate set of tongs for my vegetarian. So this has olive oil already in the pan. We got a nice brownness here on these vegetarian chicken strip things. So I'm happy with that. It's going to continue cooking for about a minute, and then we're going to build her sauce with the meat right in the pan, and we'll kind of judge it and thicken it as we go. The other thing we're going to do at this point is add in the lemon to our main sauce. Looking for seeds. I'm going to drip into the sauce. As soon as I see a seed come, I'm going to move my hand here, remove the seed. We're going to keep going. And I'm starting with about a half a lemon for this sauce. Here comes another seed. Actually, just had one fall in. So I'm going to take that half lemon. I'm going to use the same wooden spoon, stir it around, and let's taste where we are. Not lemony enough. I mean, lemon really needs to be there and pronounced. So I'm going to add in a little bit more. Happy with that. So I'm probably at not a fully juiced full lemon. I'll save the rest of that for my daughter's sauce. And we'll taste again. Bingo. That is spot on. So I'm going to leave it on super low. I'm now going to build her sauce. We're going to add this butter. We're going to add some white wine. Why not? Right into this pan. Not a lot. I'm using a non-stick pan, so we really don't need to deglaze it. Butter is going to go right in. Garlic is going to go right in. So here's her little chicken with the pan, with the sauce being made right in the pan. I'm probably not going to thicken hers, unless I feel it necessary. I'm going to add a little bit of lemon juice right into the pan. And then the one thing we haven't done with this is, because we didn't dredge it with flour or anything, is hers will need a little bit of salt. Instead of using coarse kosher salt, I'm actually going to use sea salt, which I like for finishing a little bit better. Sea salt going right on there, and some pepper going right in the pan. I'm going to turn this heat down to low. Yeah, and hers tastes just fine. All right, plating time. Let's do it. So I have the pasta over kind of near my sink, because I've just drained it and left it here and out of the way. So pasta's going on the plate right here. I'm going to set this right here on the board. We're going to pull the chicken out. I'm actually going to turn it off at this point. So here's the chicken, and for this I'm going to use 2 of the cutlets. Let's go this way. Kind of nice presentation. And then I'm going to get a larger spoon. We have our sauce, which I'm going to go right on top with. I'm going to drizzle just a little bit of it on the pasta as well to kind of incorporate that into the pasta. Last thing I'm going to do is take my microplane. If you don't have one of these, a zester is fine. All I'm going to do is zest a little bit of lemon right on top, just to kind of reinforce that lemon. And final touch, just a little bit of parsley. A messy area right now, trying to cram everything into one small space. Parsley, just for a little bit of freshness, right here on top. All right, and there we have it. Chicken piccata. Hope you enjoy.